From the earliest moments of our lives, before we even grasp the concept of self, a subtle yet powerful narrative begins to take shape within us, the belief that we are not enough. This notion doesn't emerge from our own volition, rather, it's instilled through fleeting glances, harsh words, and silent comparisons. As we navigate through childhood, these messages accumulate, forming an invisible script that dictates our self-worth. Society in its various forms, family, education, media, forces this script, teaching us to view ourselves as problems to be fixed, flaws to be concealed, and shames to be carried. In our formative years, we are acutely aware of our limitations. We rely on others for survival, guidance, and validation. This dependence fosters a natural sense of inferiority, a recognition of our smallness in a vast world. However, this feeling isn't inherently negative. It can serve as a catalyst for growth, propelling us to overcome obstacles and strive for personal development. The challenge arises when this innate sense of inferiority is compounded by external criticisms, unrealistic expectations, and constant comparisons. Over time, we begin to internalize these messages, believing that our shortcomings are not just parts of us but define us entirely. Educational systems, often structured around standardized assessments and rigid benchmarks, inadvertently contribute to this internalization. Students are frequently measured against uniform criteria, with little regard for individual strengths or unique learning styles. This environment can lead to a diminished sense of self-worth, where personal value is equated with grades and rankings. Similarly, familial dynamics can play a role. Parents, perhaps unintentionally, may compare siblings or set unattainable standards, further embedding the belief that we are inherently lacking. The media amplifies these feelings, presenting curated images of success, beauty, and happiness. Social platforms showcase highlight reels of others' lives, leading us to compare our behind the scenes with their best moments. This constant exposure can distort our self-perception, making us feel inadequate and unworthy. The market capitalizes on these insecurities, offering products and services that promise to fix us, perpetuating a cycle of consumption driven by self-doubt. Yet, amidst this pervasive narrative, there lies an opportunity for transformation. Recognizing that these feelings of inferiority are learned, not inherent, empowers us to challenge and change them. By understanding the origins of our self-doubt, we can begin to dismantle the false beliefs that have held us captive. This journey requires introspection, courage, and a commitment to redefining our self-worth on our own terms. One path forward involves embracing the concept of compensation, not as a means of masking our perceived flaws, but as a strategy for genuine growth. By channeling our energies into areas where we can excel, we transform our vulnerabilities into strengths. This approach doesn't deny our limitations, but acknowledges them as starting points for development. It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we can achieve, fostering a sense of purpose and self-efficacy. However, there's a cautionary note. Overcompensation can lead to a superiority complex, where individuals project an inflated sense of self to hide deep-seated insecurities. This facade, while temporarily protective, ultimately hinders authentic connections and personal fulfillment. True growth stems from a balanced acknowledgement of our imperfections and a commitment to continuous self-improvement. Encyclopedia Britannica +5 Very Well Mind +5 Very Well Mind +5 Central to this transformation is the idea of self-acceptance. It's about recognizing our intrinsic worth, independent of external validations or comparisons. By cultivating self-compassion, we create a foundation for resilience, enabling us to face challenges without succumbing to self-criticism. This mindset shift allows us to view failures as learning opportunities rather than definitive judgments of our character. Moreover, fostering genuine connections with others can reinforce our sense of belonging and self-worth. Engaging in communities that value authenticity over perfection provides a supportive environment for personal growth. These relationships remind us that we are not alone in our struggles and that vulnerability can be a source of strength. As we navigate this journey, It's essential to remain vigilant against the societal pressures that seek to undermine our self-esteem. By critically examining the messages we receive and challenging the standards imposed upon us, we reclaim our agency. This empowerment enables us to define success and happiness on our own terms, free from the constraints of external expectations. In conclusion, the belief that we are not enough is a narrative constructed by societal influences, not a reflection of our true selves. By understanding the origins of this belief and actively working to dismantle it, we pave the way for a more authentic and fulfilling existence. Through self-acceptance, purposeful compensation, and meaningful connections, we can transcend the limitations imposed upon us and embrace our inherent worth. Remember, the journey to self-discovery and empowerment is ongoing. It requires patience, perseverance, and a commitment to challenging the narratives that no longer serve us. But with each step forward, we move closer to a life defined not by our perceived shortcomings, but by our boundless potential. Sources, and here lies the cruelest irony, the more one tries to prove their worth to the world, the further they stray from the truth of who they are. When self-worth becomes a performance, the soul suffocates. The applause of the crowd becomes a poor substitute for the internal affirmation that was never cultivated. Validation becomes a narcotic, not a bomb, and every time it fades, the addict returns more desperate, more hollow, more estranged from the essence they once abandoned. One does not heal internalized inferiority by demanding the world to see their value. One heals by ceasing to ask permission to exist. When one stops begging for acknowledgement, something begins to stir, lowly, quietly, but undeniably. A sense of dignity, not inflated nor boastful, but silent and firm. A self no longer performing for love, but embodying it. The sickness of inferiority thrives on comparison. But comparison is an illusion, a game designed to keep people endlessly running in a race that has no finish line. Because there is always someone more skilled, more beautiful, more celebrated. The mind trained to measure itself against others will never taste peace. It will always feel behind. It will always feel lacking. The healing begins when one refuses to run. Stepping out of the comparison game is not about claiming superiority. It's about stepping into solitude, a solitude that doesn't isolate but liberates, where one's value is not in relation to others, but in relation to one's own becoming. It's a return to something elemental, pre-narrative, pre-judgment, a return to the raw, unmediated self before the distortions of culture took hold. Because culture does not reward the grounded, it rewards the desperate. It rewards the loud, the performative, the easily influenced. It punishes the still and the sovereign. But sovereignty is precisely what must be reclaimed, and that reclamation is not public. It is private. It is done in silence, in shadow, in the crucible of one's own inner revolution. That inner revolution demands war, not with the world, but with the voices inherited from it. The voices that said, "You are not enough." The voices that shape the contours of self-doubt. These voices do not die politely. They are persistent. They echo in moments of silence. They sabotage love. They poison creativity. But when faced directly, their power begins to dissolve, not instantly. Not with ease, but with time and unrelenting truthfulness. Truth is a slow antidote. It burns as it heals, because truth often reveals that much of what one believed about oneself was never true to begin with. That the shame one carries wasn't born in them, it was implanted. That the self-loathing wasn't organic, it was taught. And that healing doesn't come from achieving greatness, but from finally ceasing to chase it as proof of existence. There is no amount of success that will silence a voice rooted in shame. Shame must be uprooted, not appeased, and this requires an unlearning far more intense than any external learning ever demanded. To unlearn inferiority is to dismantle a structure that has defined perception for years, decades, perhaps a lifetime. It means losing the comfort of old self-definitions. It means grieving identities that were never real. And in that grief, something remarkable can begin, a shedding, a sloughing off of everything that was adopted in order to be accepted. One sheds the persona, the mask, the compulsions, the desperate need to explain, to justify, to prove. And underneath all of it, there is stillness, not emptiness but presence, the self that remained hidden beneath all the attempts to be enough. This self does not crave approval, it does not flinch at rejection. It observes, it breathes, it lives, it is quiet because it no longer needs to shout. It is content, not because it has everything, but because it has stopped trying to earn its right to be. This is not apathy, it is power. A power born not from dominance, but from wholeness. When one arrives here, something fundamental changes. Relationships shift, goals transform. What once felt urgent, the need to be seen, understood, praised, loses its grip. One no longer performs love to be loved. One simply loves without strategy, without barter, and that love, untainted by self-negation, becomes revolutionary, not because it is loud, but because it is clean. To live in this way is to live unnaturally by cultural standards. It is to step outside the machinery of self-marketing. It is to refuse to be a brand, to no longer reduce one's soul into bite-sized commodities. And this refusal will confuse people. It will threaten them, because when one no longer plays the game, it reminds everyone else that the game is optional, but few want to hear that. Most would rather keep running, keep proving, keep numbing. The lie is safer, the lie is profitable, the lie is familiar, but for those who can no longer stomach the lie, the path ahead is clear, though not easy. It is the path of deconstruction, of undoing the false self that was built on the foundation of inferiority. And this deconstruction will not make one likable, it will not guarantee success, but it will make one real. And to be real, in a world addicted to illusion, is the most radical act of all, because the real cannot be manipulated. The real cannot be bought, the real cannot be shamed into submission. The real walks away, and when the real walks away, it leaves behind an empire of dust. There is no applause for this kind of liberation. There is no award, no external sign that you have made it. And that's the point. This kind of freedom is quiet. It happens in invisible places. It does not trend. It does not impress. But it frees you. And once tasted, no other life will satisfy, because you are no longer living for anyone's gaze. You are no longer imprisoned by anyone's story. This is the art of unbecoming, not to lose oneself, but to lose everything that was never you. Every label, every identity, every expectation. Unbecoming is not destruction, it is revelation. It is the revelation of what was always there beneath the rubble of performance, and it is only from this place that one can truly begin to live.